people calling crazy stuff like bomb, who's this guy, who's that guy. Well, now you guys know who's this guy. What's he capable of?
Before he fought Murtazaliev, he made a name for himself in boxing by beating Tinchu in a historic fight. He challenged Terence Crawford to a fight right away, saying that Crawford was the best boxer of all time.
Interest in fighting Jermell Charlo?
Там, я говорю, мне без разницы, с кем драться. Если же не получится договориться, у кого есть пояса, мы будем выбирать из более лучших доступных бойцов. Поэтому будет это Чарло, будет это Кроуфорд, будет это Фундора, Спенс. Не имеет никакого значения. Приоритет — это пояса. Если нету поясов, боев за пояса, то можем подраться хоть.
Sean Porter thought that you would use movement and tactics to stay out of his opponent's reach. Edge Porter said that Murtazaliev started the fight with a good jab, but he was more worried about how you would circle around and use your shorter height to get the upper hand.
Guy wrong the team.
You know, the opening bell, I saw Bakhram come out and pop his jab, and he did what I told you guys Tim was going to do. I thought Tim would be the guy moving to his left, circling, and using his range. And I know you see a reach difference or this disadvantage for Tim, but it doesn't matter. I've out-jabbed everyone that I've been in the ring with. Everyone that I've been in the ring with has been taller and long.
Porter then said that Murtazaliev's team seemed to be different from what Chuck Cap thought they would do in the fight. Porter says that Murtazaliev's unexpected plan made things a lot harder for Sue during the fight. I think they came out with a different style than what the Chuck Cap expected, and I think it just started to unravel from there. As soon as Alv beat Tenchu Dakara, he went after other top fighters in the division, hoping to bring them all together and win more big titles. One of his clear goals was to show that he was the best boxer at 150 pounds. And Terence Crawford was one of the big stars he set his sights on.
Is to fight for more titles against Spence, Fundora, or Crawford. But if we cannot make it happen, then we will choose the best option for us, what will give us more opportunity.
Many people thought Crawford was the best boxer because he was a multiple division winner and one of the best 140-pound boxers. Terence Crawford watched Tin's performance during the fight and saw a major flaw in the way he faced the world-class boxer. Crawford, who is known for being protective and flexible, showed CH how to change in order to survive Zol's attacks. Tweet said Tim better change up that game plan and start moving his head coming in. The fight between Tim Chu and Barrera Aliv went on, and Terence Crawford was quick to reply on social media, writing about what he saw in real time. Crawford's first tweets told y'all and too strong for Tim, made it sound like he thought Murtazaliev's power was too much for Chu to handle. He struggled to stay balanced. CED kept fighting even though he was missing legs, which showed that Chu was losing his balance, which is another sign of being tired. Chu was also outclassed when the judge let the fight go on despite the terrible punishment. Chu, who was tired of being put down, replied with a LOL, giving 10 times to be crazy, and said he was surprised at the decision to keep the fight going. But as the brutal knockdowns kept happening and Chu's safety became more at risk, Crawford tweeted a clear and serious plea to stop the fighting. Before Tim Chu's much-anticipated fight with Bakhram Murtazaliev at the Cube Arena in Orlando, FL, there was an exciting fight on the undercard. Before the main event, which was a battle between two junior middleweight powerhouses, the 10 fights were full of action and energy. A fight between Terence Crawford and Bakhram Murtazaliev was being talked about by Greg Hackett. He said it would be a great battle for Crawford. Hackett agreed that Murtazaliev's name was growing, but he emphasized Crawford's greater skill and knowledge. Greg Hackett was thinking about the idea of Terence Crawford and Bakhram all fighting each other. He said it would be an interesting fight for Crawford. Hackett talked about how great Crawford was and said that a fight like this would bring attention to him.
That'd be a great fight for Terence Crawford. I mean, he is that level. You know what I mean? And Bakhram, everybody's speaking about Bakhram now because of what he did to Tim Tszyu, but that's what happens in boxing when you take...
Hackett said that Murtazaliev's method has good basics, even though it isn't very well known. Hackett knew that Murtazaliev's right hand, hook, and strong jab were useful in the ring. He said that a fighter with strong hands can do a lot of damage even if they don't use any flashy moves. So far as I can tell, he has a great up and down style, a great jab, a great right hand, and a great hook. That's all you need in boxing, the good basics, he said. You can do a lot if you know the basics well, says Murtazaliev, whose skills are similar to Terence's. Crawford said that Murtazaliev had good basics. But that Crawford's skills were much more dynamic and complicated. It's said that Crawford uses more techniques and factors in his fights than Tinu does. That's why Tinu thought Crawford was a much tougher opponent. Of course, Terence Crawford isn't thin, he said. Terence Crawford is a lot better than Tin in many ways. Greg Hackett was thinking about how a fight between Terence Crawford and Bakhram Murtazaliev might go. He was sure that Crawford would give Murtazaliev a lot of trouble. Hackett hailed Crawford's great jab and his skill at wearing down opponents over time. He thought that Crawford would use body shots to wear down Murtazaliev more and more as the fight went on. He thought that Crawford might be able to stop Murtazaliev by the 9th or 10th round.
He would give Bakhram a world of trouble. Just behind his jab alone, take some time to break him down, stab him to the body, things like that. Work him out till he gets to about the 9th, 10th round and probably get him out.
Murtazaliev was the aggressor from the start, and his deadly combinations quickly put him in charge of the fight. The Russian champion kept putting pressure on Chu, making it hard for him to find his flow. In the second round, Murtazaliev's punches hit hard, and you were outclassed. In your 8-year career, you had never faced a fighter like him. After you were knocked down, the fight changed in a big way. The bell rang 3 times, but the Australian didn't hear it very well. In the first minute of the round, Murtazaliev's relentless attack knocked Chu off balance, which was the first knockdown. Erickson Lubin thought about the possible fight between himself and Tin Chu and said that they had plans for what to do if Chu had won. However, after Tu lost to Bakhram Murtazaliev, Lubin knew that things had to change. He said that he would have to change his focus and try to get a fight with Murtazaliev instead, since the Russian champion is now the next target after his win.
For you, but just what's going through your mind?
What just happened? Like, what did I get hit with? And couldn't regroup, and I don't know, man. It just doesn't go your way, and you just have to bounce back, And I
acknowledged that while Murtazaliev is a tough and determined fighter, having taken some heavy shots, in his previous fight, he didn't think that he could beat Crawford. Hackett thought that Crawford's overall skill set and experience would be too much for Murtazaliev all to handle in the long run. He added that Bam got caught with some shots too, and he fell. You know what I'm saying, but he stayed determined, and you know he stayed on the goal. But I don't think Bam could be Terence Crawford. The main event provided drama from the opening. Bakhram Murtazaliev, the reigning IBS Jr. middleweight champion, entered the ring with an unblemished record of 220 and having 16 knockouts. His ability to mix power with relentless combinations had been the hallmark of his rise, and many wonder if Tim Chu could handle the pressure that Murtazaliev would bring. Chua, former WBO junior middleweight champion, had a record of 24-1 and 17 knockouts, was returned to the ring after a heartbreaking loss to the towering Sebastian Fundora in March. That loss, a 12-round split decision, had shaken Su's confidence, and many saw this fight as a must-win for the Australian. Seeking redemption after a disappointing loss, hoped to re-establish his dominance, while Murtazaliev had the chance to elevate his career with a marquee win.
Champion already, so if Tim Tszyu would have beat him, then me and Tim Tszyu, we already got something planned or whatever. But now we got to move on. We got to move on and go ahead and try to get this Russian dude in.
You were knocked down for the second time around the halfway point by a strong right hand from Murtazaliev. The third knockdown happened in the last few seconds of the round, which gave Chu and Dave time to fight their way back to their corner. People in the crowd were afraid that the fight would go on. After the fight, Tinu said he was still trying to figure out what happened when he lost to Sebastian Fundora the last time. Chu was hopeful before the fight with Murtazaliev, but things did not go well. This is how he meant it to be. It was clear to him that the result was not what he had hoped for. He felt physically ready and sure of himself going into the battle, but he said, "I was hopeful after the Fonder fight, but I need to find more answers with this one. Things did not go as planned. They were a little different." Chu took a big hit from the loss. He had planned to get back on his feet before joining the war. After his loss to Fonder, he imagined that the bigger, longer fighter would badly outbox him. Following the loss, Chu had been angry, admitting that Sebastian Fundora's long reach and powerful hits had been hard for him to handle. They knew the fight would make or break his career, but the outcome was worse than expected. Chu talked about how strong he felt while training for the fight, but he did say that Murtazaliev was the better boxer that night. He thanked Murtazaliev for the win and said he was ready to learn from the loss. He stressed how important it is to move on and get better after bad experiences in the ring. He told her, "I felt crazy. Let me be honest, I felt crazy. I was well prepared, so he was able to beat me. He was the better man that night, but we all learn from our mistakes." The doctor at the center checked on Chu between rounds to make sure he was healthy enough to continue. Even though he was told he could go on, the damage had already been done. Sue had lost her energy and confidence because Murtazaliev was so strong. Still, the Australian show showed that Hark wasn't going to give up as the third round started. But Murtazaliev quickly went back on the attack. Early in the third round, Chu was knocked down again. The referee told Chu that one more knockdown would mean the end of the fight, but Corner, seeing how badly their fighter was hurt, chose not to wait for the unavoidable. Keith Thurman was talking about the battle and how Murtazaliev's win over Tim Chu proved what his camp thought before the fight. Thurman said he was sure of himself from the moment he signed the contract and that Sue's style didn't seem strange or especially tough to him. He said that Murtazaliev had the same thought before the fight, when both Murtazaliev and his teacher said that Sue's style was predictable and perfect for Murtazaliev.
The left hook did, man. You know, I was obviously confident when I signed the contract. I said there's nothing special in what Tim Tszyu brings to the table. Earlier this week, because I was on the analytical side earlier this week, I got to interview all the fighters. And, you know, Bakhram clearly said that him and his trainer said that there's nothing special about Tim Tszyu and that Tim Tszyu is just cookie cutter made for Bakhram. And not only were they able to say that, but they...
Thurman kept looking at Tszyu's thoughts and how he was approaching the fight. He said Chu might have been too sure of himself because he didn't have a clear and flexible plan. Kay said that to win at the highest level, a fighter needs to do more than just practice. Technique and self-belief are important, but they're not enough on their own. Thurman stressed how important it is to make small changes during the fight, and Chu's failure to do so led to his loss. He then said, "Based on how Chu fought my battle, I think he was either too sure of himself or believed in himself. You should have skills and a strong will, but you also need a plan. Instead of doing the same thing over and over, you should be able to make small changes to the ring." Thurman agreed that there was no way to win without being knocked out after 3 knockdowns. Thurman saw Chu's great drive and warrior-like attitude, especially the left hook that hit him on the temple several times, hurting him and shaking him as he fell. Chu went up even more.
Scorecards would never look good, so obviously after that 3 knockdowns, there's no way he was winning tonight without a knockout. And after the 4th knockdown, but let's be real, the way he got up, the way he kept getting up.
Yeah, a lot of grit.
Yeah. I mean, if you know boxing and you know that how that left hook was hitting right on the temple, and the way Tim Tszyu went down sideways, you can almost see him shaking as he's on the ground. It's almost like we can feel the reverb from the punch.
Thurman praised Chu's determination, saying that even though his body told him to stop fighting, Chu kept going until his group gave up. Chu tried to throw an overhand right. Thurman said that Chu was one of the few warriors with the kind of heart that would be known for how tough he was and how much he loved fighting.
Consuming that type of reverb, everything in his body is telling his body to shut down, and he stood back up. And then as the last final, right before his coaches threw in the towel, he was on Bambi legs. He couldn't stand up right, but he still had the audacity to try to come with the overhand right. I mean, there just will not be, throughout history, there will not be many type of warriors.
After knocking out Jack Cattle in the 11th round to win the vacant title, Murtazaliev was eager to solidify his place in the division. After losing the WBO junior middleweight title to Sebastian Fender earlier this year, fighting gave him a chance to make things right. A win would have put him back in the running for future titles, which could have led to unification fights. Thurman was talking about his worries about Tim Tszyu before the fight. He said that he didn't think Tszyu was as scary or dangerous as some people made him out to be. He pointed out that Tszyu's trip to the US this year to fight top-level opponents showed that competing against better opponents might show where a fighter is weak. "I told you I wasn't sure if he was that scary," he said. "He came over here and fought the best fighter this year, which makes me think he's not that dangerous." As the saying goes, when you go from a small pool to a big pool, you're going to run into some big fish. Murtazaliev came into the fight with a record of 222 wins, 0 losses, and 16 knockouts. He was known for being strong and aggressive. Choi was a technical fighter who was known for being accurate and strategic. He had a 24-1 record with 17 knockouts. There were a lot of knockouts in the fight, but Murtazaliev's power was clear afterward. Chu, who looked angry, talked to the media with his mother, Hall of Fame father, promoter Matt Rose, manager Glenn Jennings, and other people who were with him. Ka was also there to cheer him on during one of the worst times in his career. Even though Tim had a great pack, he couldn't really explain why he did what he did. When asked how he felt, all he said was, "What just happened?" When asked about the fight again, he said, "I can't remember," which meant that Murtazaliev blows had knocked him out. The main event announcer, Ben Damon, called the winner. Even though Murtazaliev had a 22-20 record going into the fight, he was still seen as the outsider against Chu, who was a bigger name. Caleb Plant said that the result may have been a surprise, but that's what boxing is all about. The clan knew that the sport is unpredictable and that even the best fighters have ups and downs in their lives. His words showed that shocks are common in boxing and that no one can be sure of the outcome. He said it came as a surprise, but CompuBox says boxing has its ups and downs. Ben Damon says that Murtazaliev threw 18 more punches than Chu in the first round. Chu was a little more accurate than Alv, hitting 36% of his punches. But Murtazaliev's constant pressure was too much for Chu in the second round, knocking him down 3 times and putting him in survival mode. Caleb Plant was thinking about the ton of the knockout and saying that he thought the fight would be rough but didn't think the knockout would happen so quickly or so early. The Plant praised both attackers' skills and thought the fight would be tough, but he was surprised by how quickly it ended.
Caleb, I don't think anybody gave Murtazaliev a win by knockout.
I mean, maybe not that fast and that early, so
yeah.
But both are great fighters, so
Andre Berto didn't agree with putting Chu up against a tough, unbeatable fighter like Murtazaliev in his return fight. Berto said that Chu should not have made this choice, especially since he had just lost something. His tone showed that he wasn't happy with how Chu was handling his job, especially how hard the matchup was. Tweeted who in the hell's bright idea was a 2-match Tim Chu with this big-ass undefeated Russian pitbull for a comeback fight after a loss, shaking my head now, that was just dumb. Stephen Bredman Edwards, on the other hand, was harsher on Sue's reputation and hopes for the future. After the loss, Edwards was more worried about how Sue's reputation would be hurt by future opponents than about the loss itself. Specifically, he said that a loss like this makes it hard for a fighter like Chu to keep up their image as a destructive fighter and the soul taker. Richards tweeted Tin's career is in trouble now, and it's not the loss. If you're a man, you can come back from a loss now. No opponent will respect him when you pride yourself as a destructive fighter. He calls himself the soul taker. Few fighters of his ilk can handle that. Now that this huge fight is over, both fans and experts are wondering where he'll go next after such a terrible loss. They are also worried about his future. Can he come back to prove his doubters wrong, or has this fight been a turning point in his career that will be hard to get over? Click the subscribe button and turn on alerts if you like this breakdown and want to stay up to date on the latest boxing news, forecasts, and analysis. Write what you think will happen next to Tim Chu in the space below.